social media is one of the jobs that you have to be perfect, or there's the expectation to be perfect 100% of the time, because your mess ups are going to be extremely public, and depending on how severe they are, could ruin an entire corporation.
On the 67th episode of Passion in Progress, social media strategist Edward Stockwell. Edward was the social media manager at The Chive, Rooster Teeth, and now he is a social media strategist at Envision Creative. He also runs his own popular meme account called Spicy Boys. In this episode, we talk about running social media accounts for major internet brands and what that looks like, as well as the art of creating a good meme and what it does for your brand. If you enjoy the show, all I ask is that you share it with somebody, whether it be in casual conversation or through social media, and you can tag me at Javier Mercedes X. That's Javier Mercedes, just like the car X. What is up, Mercedes? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress show where we talk to inspiring individuals, and hopefully through hearing their stories, you too are motivated to go out and pursue your passions as well. And I could not be more excited to talk to the one, the only Edward Stockwell.
That is true. Hey, how you doing? I'm happy to be inspiring. I don't think that's the first. That's the first for me to be inspiring.
I wanted to have Edward on because a lot of people that listen to the podcast are creators. They're in the social space, and there could probably be nobody better to talk to about social media that you spend, in a good way, you spend your life in the internet looking at the social space.
Oh, do I? I'm in my 20s and I have a lot of gray hairs, and yeah, that's why.
So just to give a little background on Edward, you were at The Chive as a social media manager.
I was.
Then went to Rooster Teeth, correct?
I did.
As another social media manager, and now you're at Envision Creative, correct?
That is correct.
And you're also doing something within the
social media strategist. At Envision Creative.
Yes. So if you don't know anything about either The Chive, Rooster Teeth, or that whole space, could you give a little rundown of what those are so people can get the capacity of what you did?
I like to explain that Rooster Teeth and The Chive are extremely similar, but in very opposite spectrums. At the you know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're both these massive kind of homegrown brands that have extremely passionate followings and communities. Now, what they
on the internet,
this is true. Yeah, one of them was a cult. Both of them are cults. I mean, they kind of are. But yeah, at the end of the day, they're these, just locally grown. Rooster Teeth was locally grown. The Chive obviously moved here, but these small, eventually giant brands with these cult followings. They both differ in terms of content, obviously. Mm-hmm. One is more video focused, and one was more kind of digital publishing, but same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you are managing the social aspect of both
talking
of those.
To their rabid fans. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Rabid in a good way. Rabid in we just love this thing and we want more of it. And so you're kind of the mouthpiece speaking to them on behalf of the entire company. And what's extremely scary about that is you're kind of representing, because people don't think of it as the brand as this faceless organization. For those two brands, it's a lot of people behind it. For The Chive, there was Mag and John, obviously Leo was part of it. The different phase of Rooster Teeth even more so. There's more on-screen talent, so they don't think of it as this is Rooster Teeth speaking. This is an amalgamation of all these personalities that I know. This is them speaking. So.
Kind of break down what your job would be. Are you managing Instagram, Facebook, YouTube,
yes.
All that kind of stuff? Yes, and yes. But how does that look on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day. So at The Chive, the end goal, what I was pretty much judged by was two things. I think that was audience growth, and that was actually driving traffic to the site. Because at the end of the day, how is the money made? It's by getting eyeballs on the website, right? Mm-hmm. So that involved, we were posting, I think, to Facebook 25 times a day.
Jeez.
And then we had it varied depending, as people on social know, Facebook's algorithm changes. But the percentage of links to, native content, AKA memes and videos. That's the fancy word of something. You're native content, memes. So the percentage, I guess, or the ratio of links to that, we did, probably 75%, 60% links, and then the rest content. Mm-hmm. And so organizing and packaging the content that the writers are making on the Chive onto Facebook in a way it is very different talking to the Facebook audience than you are the website audience, right? So you have to package things a little bit different for social. So different thumbnails, different headlines a little bit, and different descriptions.
Can you give an example? What was like a post that you did that was like really awesome coming from like maybe the Chive, and then like you drove a lot of traffic from like a Facebook post?
You think about something like Cat Saturday, right?
Already sounds internet savvy.
It already does, but I mean that's a very specific like Chive branded thing. You know, it's Cat Saturday. That was Mac's post. Every Saturday that was just funny pictures of cats, right? But and it would also one of the things that we were always going back and forth is that on the Chive you have the parentheses, you know, like 23 photos or whatever, which is a very like not early internet, but early kind of 2010s thing, and that's a very but like website thing to do. But on social, it doesn't look right, and that's kind of an antiquated thing for like Facebook. So we want to like, you know, take that away. You know, how do we turn Cat Saturday so it's like, okay, people think now of like the listicle style, so like 27 photos of cats that you need to see right meow or something like that.
So just to break down for the audience that what he's talking about is on the website it would say Cat Saturday in parentheses 23 photos.
Sure.
Or 27 photos. And then what you're saying is you need a more clickbaitable title.
I need a more clickbaitable. Now, clickbait is an interesting term because there is 100% of clickbait. And what I learned there especially was the difference between, I guess, clickbait and like click enticing of the click. You know what I mean? Like clickbait is promising something that isn't going to happen, right? So, you know, if I was like 27 photos of cats that will make you stand up and cheer or whatever, you know, you see those that are on the internet. It's like, I was sitting down when I saw this, but by the end I was standing and screaming or whatever. It's like, okay, that's not going to happen. So that's kind of my definition of clickbait, is over promising something that definitely isn't going to happen. You're not going to be crying at the end of this. You're not going, this isn't the best thing you'll ever see in your life or whatever, that kind of thing. But if you're saying like, hey, this thing's neat, you should look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, you are crafting an advertisement for that piece of content. Like you need to make it enticing. If it's not enticing, then I'm not doing my job and like traffic doesn't happen. So, I mean, especially now, which I could go into like forever about, but like today's state of the internet versus what it was like 10 years ago, it's like everyone's having to do that. And of course, like modern like news is having to do that. Everyone's competing for eyeballs, you know, more than ever, because there's just so much content that we're all having to say, hey, look at this cool thing that I'm doing. Like I promise you this is worth your time, but you have to kind of entice people to do that. You can't just say like, I made this and then like stand back, you know?
Isn't that the dream? I would love for that to happen.
Yes. I wish it was so easy, because I see a lot. I have very talented friends that I feel they make really cool stuff, and then they like send it out there, and then, you know, nothing happens. I'm like, dude, everyone should see this cool thing. Like this podcast. Everyone should see this cool thing, but you know, marketing more than ever is just super important.
From the beginning of when you started to where you're at now in your career, how much of an impact have you seen the switch from websites being their own island of content, a content pillar, I think, as you put it, as opposed to we need to make content specific material for platforms?
That's a great question. And again, Rooster Teeth and the Chive were two places that the leadership especially had kind of similar philosophies. You know, John and Leo at the Chive are very much like you and it's smart. You want to keep things native to your platform like as possible. You know, you don't want your thing to live on someone else's thing.
So, I hate,
oh yeah, sure.
No, but I hate cutting off the guests. But just to let people know, I think it was episode 15. I actually had John, the co-founder of the Chive, on the podcast, and we did talk about this, owned and operated. I think that was one of the biggest aspects of that conversation, was like the power of, you may not have as many numbers, but the actual audience that you do have is like, it's exactly. Like stronger.
You want that niche. And Rooster Teeth, one of their co-founders, Bernie Burns, always says a lot, never build your business off of someone else's business. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, a lot of people who build their businesses off of Facebook, kind of are going away or have at least dwindled extremely. I mean, we saw so many digital publishers in the past 4 years, 5 years, just completely go bankrupt.
It's hard for me because I know exactly what you're talking about, but can you give some context to the viewers that don't know?
So let's say 5 years ago, Facebook was, the way the algorithm worked is that, if I was a publisher, let's say The Chive, even though this isn't really exactly the case of The Chive, but let's say I'm The Chive and I, am posting my links, some dank memes, or just my articles to my site, Facebook is rewarding that many, many, many times over back then than it is right now. So more people are seeing your articles. Eventually, Facebook just kind of turned the faucet off and was like, okay, we're going to have this algorithm shift that says a fraction of the people that were initially seeing your article, are now going to see your articles from now on. And the way it works is unless your stuff is really, really good and a lot of people like it, then it's just going to go out there and kind of fizzle, or we're just not going to show it to people. They wanted to make Facebook more about, your friends and your family and stuff like that, which is on the surface level a very admirable, motive. But to, news outlets and publishers and stuff, it was, the nail in the coffin almost.
Wasn't it too that, and this is me speculating, that their monetization strategy was that if you want more eyeballs on this, spend money on it, and then it will go out. So can you explain that?
For sure. So I mean, you can obviously buy boosting, I guess, for content on Facebook. So I can pour in couple $1,000 behind a piece of content to get more eyeballs on it. And depending on how much you spend, the more people will see it, right? Because right now, even though it's a secret algorithm that no one knows about, what the perceived way of it is for simplicity's sake, let's say you have 10 people in your audience, right? Actually, let's make it 100. You have 100 people in your audience. You post something. 1 or 2 people are initially going to see it on their newsfeed. And depending on how they react to it, it'll get pushed out to a few more people and a few more. And depending on how they react to it, then Facebook says, okay, based on this initial, 10 out of 100 people, 6 of them really liked it. It must be worthwhile content. Now let's kind of push it out there. So you kind of have to be hitting home runs almost every single time. And
you were publishing something like 20 pieces a day.
Exactly. So all your stuff has to be good. And so that's what, the strategy of like, okay, why post memes comes into play, because then, memes, photos, and videos are weighted better in Facebook's algorithm. So, and just generally people interact and share memes a lot more than they do, pieces of written content. So we called it feeding the beast. So you would have to crank out a meme that resonated with a lot of people in order to lift your standing in Facebook's algorithm. Because then they go, okay, well, they just published this piece of content, which was a meme, and everyone really liked it. So you know what? We'll give them benefit of the doubt that their next thing that they post is going to be pretty good. And so it'd be an article. And so that one would perform a little bit better than if you hadn't posted a good meme. You know what I mean?
Wow. So would you say that if an advertiser came to either of the companies and was like, "Hey, we want to get in front of whatever audience and everything," would it be a good strategy to like have a set of fire dank memes and then come with your sponsored content because you know that it's going to perform much better?
I mean, that's what I did at the Chive. That's exactly what they did. Is we did have sponsors comments like, "Can you write dank memes for us?" And I'd say sure, and I'd send them back, and they're like, well, "This is too dank. We want it more branded." I'm like, okay, well, the more branded you make it, the less dank it's going to be, and then, so it's this endless tug of war between the brand and like actual, like a good content.
Actual dankness. I love this conversation. This is one of the best conversations I've had on the podcast. Facebook, were you doing stuff with Instagram as well?
Oh, of course, yeah. I ran the Instagram too. I ran where we had Snapchat, Twitter, and then I would upload stuff that y'all would send me from YouTube. So
let's get into Instagram because I feel like that's the hot kid on the block right now.
Yes.
Is it a lot of similarities between what we were just talking about with Facebook to Instagram? What would be a content strategy there?
Sure.
For like those big brands.
Yeah. So, I mean, Facebook obviously lends itself more towards, my big KPI, key performance index.
Thank you for explaining it. Yeah.
My, to-do list, I guess, of driving traffic. Instagram, you can't really do that too much, or it's not built for that, right? So that's more of a strict brand play. That's a straight up kind of audience play. So for that, it was get more people to at least be introduced to the Chive, to like the Instagram, and then they like what they see. They get more involved with the brand, blah, 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 sell t-shirts that way. Instagram's great, as you know, for selling, e-commerce and like products and stuff. So the Chive really was a big play on the Chive's Instagram. But yeah, I mean, that one's just pretty much straight up videos, memes, and then I guess photos of pretty ladies. You could, once they introduced Instagram stories and like the whole swipe up feature, you could drive a little bit of traffic that way. And we would make these kind of vertical graphics that moved or whatever. And, it'd be, they'd bounce and be like, hey, Cat Saturday or whatever, like swipe up for more cats or whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think Instagram's a big just branding play, right? This is what I'm about. And then hopefully you like it and we'll go over to my, actual playground.
Can you talk about one of your recent articles that you wrote about what you post to social and what not to post?
Yeah, I mean, so depending on your business, there's a whole myriad of things. I mean, obviously not everyone should post memes. Although I find myself tested by my own theory, because there is I forget what it is, the United States, I guess, consumer safety organization in the government. Like their Twitter is awesome, and they post like these weird photos with like flying vacuums and stuff like that, and they're like actual consumer safety guideline tips. It's this very antiquated like branch in the government that is like actually posting like pretty dank content on Twitter, and it's like sort of working.
I love talking to people like you because you have a really good finger on the pulse of that kind of stuff. Like now I actually am really interested in.
I'll look it up. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, look it up. I'm sorry. That's the like U.S. consumer safety whatever. But yeah, they do like dank memes, and it's definitely something that I wouldn't think should do memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to figure out like what are you trying to get from social media? Who is, your brand? What is their voice? These are all things. You kind of have to make your brand or your business like a person. You have to personify it and then say like, all right, who is this like person? And like, again, how are they going to speak on social media? Are they going to speak in the first person? Are they going to speak in the third person? Like it depends, in my opinion, on like the platform. What are they trying to get from this?
Speaking as a person, talk about the comment section and when they talk to you, negative, positive. How do you react?
So the rules of this have changed, I think, especially if we've seen on Twitter in the last couple of years with like Wendy's and stuff like that. All these brands are talking back. Now the severity in which they talk back differs. When I was in college, I wrote for satire paper at UT called the Texas Travesty, and a lot of those guys went on to write for the Onion. And like Clickhole. And I guess the number one rule we learned, they would come and have little seminars with us, and from the Onion to the Travesty, and tell us, kind of their tips and how they create content. And they're a big thing in good comedy and good satire. You only punch up, and you never punch down is the rule. So if you read anything about the Onion, they're always punching up into positions of power. They don't go after like the little guy in like a just mean-spirited way. And that sort of applies to the comment section. If someone's just outright being just a troll, then go after them a little bit, depending on your brand. And if that's part of what your brand stands for and what they're comfortable doing. But, you never want, if someone's having a generally bad customer experience and it's your fault, you don't attack them. So yeah, and a lot of people mess up that way. And it's funny to see, but it's also like my heart goes out to them, because social media is one of the jobs that you have to be perfect, or there's the expectation to be perfect 100% of the time, because your mess ups are going to be extremely public, and depending on how severe they are, could like ruin an entire corporation. So yeah, it does demand, there's always the, I guess, a joke of, oh, like the social media intern like messed up. And it's like, no, these are normally like extremely competent people at like high-end agencies, like running these big accounts. Like obviously, Wendy's isn't giving their Twitter account to the intern. These are people who are paid a lot of money to run these accounts. And they should be paid even more because they are acting as like PR, obviously marketing, like
the face of the company.
They're the face of the company. Their internal advertising, and their PR. They might cause PR, but they're also taking care of PR, because what is community management if not some form of PR?
What's your stance on a person being a face of a company in the circumstance of their social, or a brand just kind of being a brand? And if you could think of an actual example of both. Because if I'm thinking of Nike, I can't think of the actual person that has like is Nike's person, but I can think of like the shoemaker that's in like a lot of documentaries, and like there's other people like associated with the brand. And then when I think of like T-Mobile, I think of that guy in the apron with the pink, like like that. Like I feel like I know the face of that brand. What is your opinion on personality of a brand?
It's a good question. And it's something that in the past couple years, I think launched by Moon Pie and a lot of like food brands.
I don't know. What's Moon Pie?
Okay, so Moon Pie is, what a Moon Pie is? Like the classic, like early 1920s, like chocolate cake snack or whatever. Okay. They're still around. I think what is it? It's like an oatmeal kind of cookie with like the cream in the middle, called Moon Pies. A very old snack, very antiquated food. And I forget the agency that started running their account, but they started taking off by basically personifying Moon Pie. And I like to think of, in 1984, the book, like he learns the word I, the terrible id. It's like brand Twitter, like learned the terrible id and like learned I. And instead of, again, like speaking in the first person, and the brand wasn't this amalgamation of like this faceless people, or it became like one singular person, like who was nameless. It was just Moon Pie, like I am here. You know what I mean? Like, so one of their big tweets was during the the recession. No, not the recession, I'm sorry. The government shutdown in like 2016 or 2017. NASA's Twitter, basically, they couldn't run anymore, like legally, I guess, during the
government shutdown.
Yeah. And so they like tweeted out like, okay, during the shutdown, we apologize, we won't be answering any of like your questions or whatever. And then like Moon Pie took that tweet, like quote tweeted it, which means like retweeted it, and then added their own caption, just like, yo, well, like NASA's down, no way, I'll be here answering all of your moon related like questions. And like it took off. And you just saw, especially in that example, the difference between NASA speaking and we as the company, and then like Moon Pie's like, I'm here. And spoke pretty much like that. Yes. Yes. Like, and was just like, yo, like literally, yo, I'm here. I'll be answering any moon related questions that you may have at this time. A good friend of mine who worked at the Chive, Mac McCann, runs Pluckers. He's the Pluckers social guy. And in a very similar way.
Shout out. If you are not following Mac on Twitter, you should.
Yes, Mac is a very smart social media person as well. Pluckers is a great account, and has definitely leaned into that personifying Pluckers. No one, who follows the account knows it's Mac, but, to them, Pluckers loves listening to like old school, like UGK, and like tweeting about rings. And is speaks in I, and it's just he'll send something out like, please like this so I can show my bosses I'm doing like a good job or whatever. Like it's a very like so true. It's a very like bold strategy, but it pays off. And so we're kind of in the era of like what a lot of people are calling like brand Twitter, and that's what you see with like the Wendy's like quote unquote like clapbacks, and like the recent feud between like Chick-fil-A and Popeyes.
For the YouTube crowd that follows, I think one that's relatable is Burger King and Casey Neistat. Did you see that?
I'm a little bit familiar, but
so I could be getting this completely wrong, but I think Casey Neistat tweeted out or he made a video on YouTube or something like that about how somebody from Burger King went back to like 2011 or something like that and liked one of his posts. And he was like, oh, is this like a fake Burger King account? But it was like the real Burger King account. So what he did was he retweeted back. He was like, why are you liking my post from like 2000? And it was like a random post.
Sure.
And so then that caught fire. And then what Casey said after he made a YouTube video about it, he was like, wait a minute, they're like using me because now that I've brought attention to Burger King, we're having this like, and it wasn't really a feud.
Sure.
And
it goes back and forth.
Yeah, it goes back and forth. He was like, wait a minute, I want to get paid for this.
Yeah, he just gave them. He played himself.
So he made a YouTube video about it. He doesn't like eating that kind of food. He doesn't like eating fast food and everything. Yeah. He's like, look, if you don't pay me, but like donate to like some charity. And this is the part that I may be getting wrong, and you can go look it up or whatever. Sure. But I think it's like Burger King ended up like paying to a certain charity, and then he like ate a Big Mac on screen or something like that. But
that'd
like,
be a Whopper, the Big Mac.
Yeah, or sorry, not Big Mac.
Thing. No, you're
given all the, but yeah, it was a Whopper, and then it would like all made equilibrium. It made it all right. But I appreciated the fact of like Casey totally turning it on its head and being like, you people just totally like calling me out on this.
He called them out first, didn't he? Because he was like, why did y'all No,
exactly. So he called them out, but in a sense, they're both like elevating each other
for sure
in the limelight.
Yeah. I mean, he gave them publicity, and it was like, hang on, wait a second.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait a minute. That happened to Mac from Pluckers. Tweeted something out, and then Jake Paul tweeted at them, and was just like, yo, can you hook me up with like some like free wings or something like that?
Mac probably did some awesome.
Well, and then Mac went to Jake Paul's Twitter, blocked him, took a screenshot of like Pluckers blocking Jake Paul, and then like retweeted that and said like no, and it got. And it got like 120,000 retweets and like jumped them up. So
how much of your job is just having a pulse on what the internet is doing?
All the time is the point where I'm just, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I try and like limit my time on the internet. Like I'm not a big Redditor. Because I feel like once you go down that wormhole, you'll just be on the internet 24/7. I feel like I have a good pulse on, what's trending, what's a meme, what's about to become a meme. And so there's also that like thing too, is if you're a brand, like when do you jump in on the meme? If it's too early and no one knows what you're talking about, then it's like, okay, that was kind of a weird tweet. But if it's too late, then people are like, you're just trying to jump in on this, like being a dead horse. So we were on that 3 days ago. You might try and create a meme out of something. But yeah, there is definitely this kind of, back and forth.
A sweet spot of memeology.
And it's interesting too, because you were talking about kind of like publicity and stuff like the whole Casey Burger King thing. I mean, Netflix's whole strategy, like I felt I didn't see Bird Box, but I felt I watched the movie just because of how many memes and tweets that were about Bird Box. Mm-hmm. And so they're smart in terms of when they launch something like that, like heavily promote memes so that people need to watch it to feel in on the joke, right? Like, okay, well, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to watch it just so I can at least get the references. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge strategy for them right now.
Yeah.
But it also goes against it because they'll have like good shows that they don't meme and then they get canceled because no one's watching them because they're not like a part of the, I guess, like internet conversation. So people are like, I don't feel like watching this because there's this extreme explosion of content right now just from every corner. And like we only have so many hours in the day. Mm-hmm. So a lot of really good stuff isn't getting, I guess, consumed because, what's your backlog of like shows that you need to, that people have said, oh, you got to watch this. And I'm like, okay, like I'll add it to the list and I'll never get around to it. And I'm sure it's excellent.
Yeah.
But until it either like wins awards or like becomes part of, I guess the internet conversation and I need to like know it to get references and stuff, I'm probably not going to watch it.
So let's talk about something like Star Wars or a Marvel movie.
Sure.
When those came out
mm-hmm.
and you were making memes about them,
mm-hmm.
had you even saw the movie?
I mean, I normally want to see those Marvel movies or Star Wars because I'm just a big fan, like day one.
Okay. But like, how much of that was just from the sake of, I need to do this for my job because I need to know, like, if I make a reference about Thanos and then all of a sudden they're like, what are you talking about?
It's a good question. I mean, I was kind of suited well for that because I generally love those types of movies and like I want to see them like day one or as soon as possible. I mean, there is always though the like, I think Game of Thrones was a very interesting like time, especially like towards the end of the series, because you know, with something like Marvel or Star Wars, there's a grace period because it's a movie. There's so many limited seats in theaters. Not everyone can go see it, you know, opening weekend. There's a lot of barriers to entry for movies to be able to see it right when they come out, right? You know, I got to drive to a theater, I got to buy a ticket and like all that stuff. Game of Thrones, it's like you assume everyone has access to HBO Go some way.
Yeah.
They're borrowing it from like their like friends, girlfriends, like cousin or whatever. So it was almost treated like NFL like football night or something. So in terms of spoilers of what you could tweet, like there became this kind of unspoken rule of like, you know what, you have 24 hours to see Game of Thrones, maybe even less, but like we're all watching it live. If you're not watching it live, then stay off the internet, and like I can't help you if you see a spoiler. Like that's your own fault. Why would you, you know, if you really cared about, you know, who won a football game and for some reason you don't want to like hear about it until you get home or get to watch the game, like then don't obviously turn on like sports talk radio on your way home if you're trying not to get spoiled on who won.
Just don't turn on the internet.
Don't go on the internet. And I'm like 100. I kind of subscribe to that. There's certain things. Now, I don't think we as a society like clearly state that as the rule. Like, all right, Game of Thrones, we all need to agree that you better watch it live. If you don't watch it live, stay off the internet until you can watch it. Movies and stuff, there's about, I think what was the official grace period for like Infinity War was like 2 weeks. I think
they went hardcore on the public announcements. Of don't spoil.
Well, the directors came out, I remember, and said like, we will begin talking about this in 2 weeks' time. It's like that's the time period. So I think also they released the Spider-Man trailer like 2 weeks after Endgame came out. So they kind of had to say that because it was just like, all right, well, the Spider-Man trailer clearly spoils what happens in Endgame. So but I think that's a good one. 2 weeks for like a major movie of just like politely don't spoil things.
That reminds me of Childish Gambino and the This Is America or Donald Glover, whatever he's going by these days.
The artist formerly known as
when he went on talk shows and people were asking him about This Is America, and I mean obviously you've seen it, and for those that don't know, it's a music video that does like some pretty raunchy things, but it was like it was pretty forward in in what it did,
a lot of visual imagery.
He would go on talk shows and they would ask him about it and he'd be like, I mean, it's whatever you want it to be. And he would just kind of graze by whatever the meaning of the music video was. And they like when that music video came out, everybody was talking about it, and it was crickets from his end. And he just like kind of put it on the internet, and they're like, I
read a lot of articles about it, and people kind of interpreted it as he's doing these kind of outlandish things in the video, very memeable things in the video, but it's kind of speaking about how a lot of things is just internet culture now, and like everything has become a meme. And so a lot of people are like, all right, like don't make memes about this, because it's basically saying like what's wrong with America is that like everything becomes a meme. You know, there's a lot of other things wrong that he's saying in that video, but you know, that's another thing. It's like, it's all just like internet culture. It's all pop culture. Like, so don't meme this. And of course people memed it because he intentionally, I think, made a lot of things like over the top and outlandish in that like in a GIF form. It makes a great meme. And so when that video first dropped, I saw a lot of, you know, people try and meme it, and then they would get backlash. It was like, no, like this is, you're not understanding the actual video. Like, this is, you know, so that was a very interesting, I think, time when that video dropped.
Can you talk about Spicy Boys?
I can talk about Spicy Boys.
I just want to get into a conversation of like what makes a great meme, especially for the kind of content that you're making for that page, because when I think of a cliche meme, and that could mean so many different things, but when I think of a cliche meme, you're making that kind of content for that Instagram page. And in and of itself, what are you looking for? But before we dive into that, like explain what Spicy Boys is and the origin stories.
Sure. Spicy Boys is, so we talked about how I worked at the Chive, I worked at Rooster Teeth, and while I was there, my job was to obviously make content as those brands, as the Chive or as Rooster Teeth. And, before that and a little bit during, I had like a pretty active, I guess, like personal like Twitter account, personal Instagram where I would like try things out. But when most of your day is like making content, I feel like content creators will know. It's like if you're making something for a brand like constantly all day, like you kind of don't have the time or like the like just brain juice to make stuff for yourself. You're just like, well, okay, I'm putting all my everything and all my ideas on behalf of this company. That's why they're paying me, right? It's for my ideas. I'm not gonna like hoard, my ideas and like, well, I'll give you the bad stuff because that's a bad thing to do and you'll get fired. So when I left, those companies and kind of, I knew I wanted to transition into like an agency world where I'm not going to be as outlandish or like ridiculous. I thought, well, a side project, well, let me just make my own sort of brand that could employ memes, and I can be dumb and outlandish with. So that's where Spicy Boys came from, and it's SPCYBOIS
on Instagram.
On Instagram and Facebook and
I didn't know.
They're on Facebook.
I gotta follow it.
Facebook's, it's the same content, but there are like some future plans with it. I talked to a really good like designer buddy of mine. He made me this cool logo. He's like, "What do you want it to be?" I was like, like an Italian chef. That kind of like Mamma Mia, like
for the people that aren't watching, explain what the logo is, because it just it encapsulates.
Right,
when I saw it, I was like, dude, this is completely Edward.
For the listener at home, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to
while you're driving.
Yes, tune everything out. I want you to picture a not name brand cardboard box of pizza. That you get from like some sort of like not one of the main chains of pizza, right? On that box is an Italian chef. He's likely a very portly man. He's got a mustache. In one hand, he is holding the pizza, exposed on the pan. And in the other hand, he's making a very unique hand gesture. It's kind of, he's putting the tips of his fingers together as if he had just kissed his mouth. You know what I mean? That is the hand gesture. That is the symbol of Spicy Boys right there.
Like, it's a spicy.
Yes. That's a spicy meatball.
But it's a spicy meme.
It's a spicy meme ball. Exactly.
Yeah. That was a great explanation of it. What makes a great meme?
At the end of the day, I think a meme is just something that's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that I've made that have like taken off. And I guess I should get, like dial back a little bit. And, before I made the account, I, followed some meme accounts on Instagram, and I'd see these ones with like, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million plus followers, where I'm just like, they're either just stealing memes, they're ripping tweets and just posting them, and I'm like, okay, well, you're not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can do this. I can say not anyone, but because you have to be good at curation, but most people with any decent sense of humor can curate a good list of tweets, and then just post them on Instagram. I'd follow ones who were creating original account, and a lot of them were making great stuff, but there'd be some with like 3 million followers. I'm like, I could do better. And so eventually I was like, well, okay, if you can do better, then try it out. And so yeah, I have, and I've had several, that then get, which I highly encourage, them to get taken by these bigger meme accounts, because that grows my account because they credit it. And if they don't, I come after them, and then they credit. But so the ones that have taken off, have been shared a lot by like these like giant accounts, are just, at the end of the day, it's something super obscure that everyone does or everyone has experienced.
What you just said was a great definition of a meme.
Yeah, it's just like it's. All of those now. We're in the meme phase where it's like when you blank, or like me when I, or whatever. It's just, but whether it hits like the home run out of it now, is like, is it something that everyone does? Because it can be too obscure and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or it could just be like too, broad in general, and it's just like, okay, that's not that funny. It's the ones that are like, okay, I didn't realize that I do that, but now that you tell me that I do that, I know that I do that all the time.
And then the piece of content in between both of those pieces of text, giving context to,
of course,
the thing is something, is the punchline. Yeah. Can you explain the art? because I think this is a true art in meme connoisseurage.
Mm-hmm. We call it memology.
Memology. Yeah. I was like, sewerage is not a good word. In memology, the art of creating the caption underneath the actual meme, because you have to then come up with a whole nother punchline to the meme that you already created.
I don't think that's as important as the meme itself.
When I see really good content of a meme, and then underneath they say something that's like the punchline of the punchline, or say somebody retweets a meme, but then they retweet it, and then that the comment that they have of that retweet almost adds more gusto to whatever the meme was. What goes through your head when you need to post the caption underneath the meme that you've already thought about?
If you have to explain what the joke was, then it's not a good meme. You just kind of want to add maybe that extra, I guess, it's hard to explain, add that extra layer that I guess supports what the meme was, right? So if it's something extremely relatable, it's maybe something you would, like a quote, like something you would say in that situation.
Let's give a specific example. Like, did you ever blah blah blah? The guy walking in and the
Jonathan Frakes thing.
Yeah. Can you give context of what the meme is so we can then dissect how that? Because I thought that meme was so good.
There was a video that was unearthed via Reddit there was that show with Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek.
He was the side character.
Yeah, he was one of the side characters in Star Trek.
He had a nice head of hair, if you can remember.
Yeah,
like for the people that like
deep
can't.
Voice.
Yeah.
Piercing blue eyes. But it was him. Someone had cut together. I forget what the show is called. I'm gonna get roasted for this probably. Don't clap back in the comments. But it was. They started the show with like a mystery, and it was kind of like Twilight Zone, he was kind of the what's his name, Roger, the narrator guy, Rod Sterling, that was his name. Anyways, he would kind of introduce like the mystery or something that you're about to watch, and it would always kind of begin with a question. It was like he'd ride in on a mountain bike, like, have you ever gone mountain biking, and like on a hot summer's day, and like these weird things. He's like, you ever flown a kite before? And they're just very bizarre, and someone just cut together him doing all those things, and it's just like him asking a bunch of questions. It was already becoming a meme, and my take on it was it's parentheses, returning from a week-long vacation abroad, and then customs and border protection is basically the one like asking all these like absurd questions, because like, when you come back, they're like, what did you do, where did you go, do you have rocks on you, like are you taking any like foreign materials, or like do you have seeds on you, and all these absurd things. And that's kind of like what the Jonathan Frakes thing was in. That one kind of took off.
Do you just like peruse the internet and then get an idea?
I have a couple friends who they'll send me stuff, who are, I think, Redditors, and they'll send me stuff and like, this is something. Sometimes I'll look at it, I'm like, yes, there is something there, and I'll never think of it. And then sometimes it's just like instant, I'm like, okay, like boom. Sometimes I'll have to think about it. And they're kind of good test pilots of making something. I'll send to them. I'll send options because I'm like, okay, it's either this or this. Which one do you think is funnier? And they're like, oh, I like that one more. I'm like, okay. And again, not everything is a home run. And I have ebbs and flows, but I mean, sometimes we'll have weeks where it's like, okay, cool, like all the big accounts shared it, and I'll get like several thousand followers come in. And so my end goal is to eventually create a sort of native site, to build an audience. That's what I'm doing, is building an audience of people who like dumb stuff and like, I guess, my sense of humor, and then to kind of start my own blog about kind of dumb stuff and things that I like. And then, push people towards that and call it Spicy Boys. Have a couple friends work on it with me and stuff like that. And just start our own blog. Yeah. Make funny shirts, sell funny shirts.
Are we
get money?
Are we bringing this back to the beginning of the podcast?
Maybe it's because I learned things in my career and was like, I could maybe try this. Owned and
operated? Is that what you're trying to?
I think own and operate. I think I don't want to truly build Spicy Boys on someone else's platform, aka Instagram. I think that's a lesson to be learned. I think I want to. There's nothing wrong with building an audience on someone else's platform and then taking them somewhere else. Barstool Sports, for all intents and purposes, has done that. I think they built their brand off of social media, but it's still a very powerful, I guess, native brand. People now go organically to their site.
How would you start to even do that? Because I feel like it's getting harder and harder.
It is harder
and
to
harder.
Do that. I would probably start with e-com, make some like fire funny shirts that people like. Try and start, I guess, you kind of have to create the lifestyle brand, I guess, before they'll even read a word that you have to say. That I feel like, buying a hat is less of a commitment than going, strange as it sounds, than going somewhere and like reading something that someone wrote.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
How so? Well, knowing that your background, I'm sure you have seen things to actually back up what you just said.
I feel like people today are like, that's funny, I'll wear that, but I gotta go read someone's opinion on something. Like, nah. Yeah, I'm not gonna sit down and like read your words and your opinions on something, but if you made something, like I'll consume that thing. I mean, I think shirts, and just, yeah, e-com in general is just an extension of memes now, or can be. Like clothing is content in a way now.
Yeah, a walking meme.
Exactly, you're a walking meme. It's like, does this fit with my own personal brand identity? Yeah, I'll wear that.
To do what you do as a memologist,
Sure.
How much of it has to do with having a good understanding of people?
That's a good question. I think just does someone like get how people work? You know, like not even to say that they're a people person, because I am like a little bit of like an introverted extrovert. Like I don't come out unless, you know, I know you a little bit.
I ask you to be on a podcast.
Exactly. Well, there's no one else around me, so I'm like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
Like being on camera for me is fine. But like being in like a small crowd of people, to me, and being like, hey, go talk to those people, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Please no. But you know, I do think I get how people work. So yeah, I would say like, do they just understand how people work? Like, do they have like general, I guess, like social skills? But at the end of the day, that doesn't always make you good. I don't know. You just gotta notice like little things.
Well, like, what are the intangibles, man? That's what
I don't know. I'll tell you this. When I got hired at the Chive, it was right out of college. And Dave Welch, who hired me, you know, I hadn't worked. I shouldn't have gotten that job based on, you know, my experience, which was essentially none. He, you know, saw that I wrote for this humor magazine. He saw I was organized because I was like the station manager for the college TV station. So he knew I wasn't like I guess, complete like klutz, you know, or
yeah.
And we had, you know, like good rapport. And so he was like, all right, like I can teach you, you know, how to schedule things to Facebook. And again, like people think that social media is like a skillless job. I guess at its extreme core of like, can you just like schedule something to Facebook? Like, yeah, I mean, anyone can do that because everyone is doing that already, you know? He's like, I can teach you how to schedule stuff and like work the tools and like read analytics and stuff. He's like, but I can't teach someone like how to be funny or like how to like make good content. It's one of those things that's like, you just have it or you don't, you know? And I think you can definitely improve and you can get better. Like, I feel like I'm definitely a better memer or just social media person than I was back then. It's just like, all right, do you get it or not? If you don't, I don't think it's a teachable skill to be like a good social media like content creator or a memer or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really keyed into when I was at the Chive, because making video content, it's similar in ways of like audience retention,
for sure.
In terms of, all right, is this jiving with the audience, and did it or did it not? And then you can look at analytics and do all that stuff, but do you have the capacity to know what to change in whatever you did? And then when a new situation arises or some new piece of content has the ability to scale or whatever it be, can you turn on that thinking of, all right, this is the way we should do it, and that is like how it's going to work, and then like you can kind of foresee how it's going to work.
Yeah, well, so much of, I feel like, of editing, and depending on the thing you're editing, like, I mean, you know, comedy videos for the Chive, I mean, editing is, you like, to make it good, you have to know comedic timing. I mean, you are pacing out the jokes, like you're like, when a comedic beat drops, like you're in charge of making that happen. I mean, we had very funny like video editors, like Jake Sanders, I think, was like one of the funniest people I've ever met, and he was, you know, the editor on video.
Shout out Andy Fenberg.
Shout out to Andy Fenberg.
He's still there, but he was like the guy that taught me everything I know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like editing is, if you are having someone who doesn't understand, you know, at least the basics of like comedy and humor, editing a humor video, like, I don't know, like it might not turn out well. Like the core, the script could be great, but if it's just not edited right, then
it falls flat for sure.
It falls flat.
Personally, I remember doing, because there's like different kinds of content at the Chive, and whenever I'd get like a comedy type of edit, I would start putting my mentality is I'm just gonna start putting this together, like chopping it up, and then just like, all right, here's the basic concepts of what I know you guys want. Where does it fall flat? Where does it fall flat? And there's a whole thing to that of when you're watching something with somebody else, the editor, the producer, when somebody's watching it for the first time, they're so just like watching you like a hawk. Like, oh, did he react to that thing? Did he not react? Oh, should we are they losing attention here? Or like, are they talking during this? Like, oh, did they find that funny? And it's a completely different thing.
I remember there'd be like a group of about 6 of us who would be routinely
called down. Come down.
You would have us come down and be like, all right, here's the rough cut. It's going to be long, but like, tell me what I need to cut. Like, what do you like? And then we would just sit there and like watch it, and like we'd all laugh together at certain things and maybe not at other things. And you would just like watch us, or any of the editors would watch us and be like, okay. And we go, all right. So at the end, like you'd ask us, all right, well, you know, it's already long, so we have to cut stuff. So like, what could be cut?
It just reminds me of like the milk mile, like trying to cut that for Dave. But I don't want to get into too like personal, or not just from the fact of like we would have to explain that kind of stuff. Just to speed this up, why do you do what you do?
I ask myself that every morning when I wake up. Why do I do what I do? When I was in college, I went in, my degree was in radio, television, film. And I initially went in, I wanted to be as I think like all movie interested boys want to do, is I kind of want to be a director. I either wanted to be a director or a screenwriter. And I took like one directing class. I was like, no, not for me. I was like, do not like this.
It's good that you knew that then.
Yes. And I took it early. I was just like, nah. Next, I liked writing, and I took a lot of screenwriting classes. In one of the last ones that I took, I had just written a feature, and then we had just written like a spec script for like a TV show. So you're writing a script for a show that already exists, and you're like, all right, like Mad Men, here's my episode that I would, want to write. And we had a Skype session with I guess, Hollywood screenwriter. I forget what they had written, but they had like sold stuff. They were in, I guess, quote, the business.
Yeah.
And we were Skyping with them, and I just like looked at them like, you look miserable. Like you look like, and you're doing well, and you just look 12 years older than you are, and just miserable and just sad. And I'm not saying everyone out there is, or that if you screen like you're gonna be like, but I was just like, I don't know. That's like, I don't even know if I would, make it out in LA. I didn't want to move to LA. I knew that too. So I was like, that kind of sucks. Like, maybe I don't want that life, but I know I'd like to write. At that point, I interned at Rooster Teeth in college. And I was like, hey, this, internet thing, like there's a quicker turnaround, there's less of a, the tape around everything. So if things work there, it's like, oh, we have a good idea for like a video. And it's like, well, we're the ones in charge of making the video. So like, if we think something's good, like, let's just do it. Yep. There was less bureaucracy. It's the internet, so you can kind of do whatever you want. And so I went, okay, like digital, I think is the future. It would, at that point, it already like was here, but I was like, okay, like maybe don't go into like traditional media, like try this internet kind of thing out. And so that's kind of where I focused on. And so I went, and at the end of the day, I was like, I just like making things that make people laugh or that make people happy. I don't believe that like what I do is at all some sort of like grand betterment for like humankind. Like I'm not cleaning the oceans or anything like that. I'm not really solving any major world issue. I'm not curing cancer or anything like that. But I go on with myself in that if I make something, at the Chive or at Rooster Teeth for Spicy Boys, for any of the clients I work with right now, that like brightens their day a little bit, that they just like laugh and like show their friends and like, this is like really funny. This made me laugh today. I'm like, that's awesome.
Case in point, I mean, just where you're sitting at right now, like both my wife and I work right next to each other, and both of us, when we're scrolling Instagram, we're like, oh, did you see what Edward posted on Spicy Boys? And and she'll be on a conference call, and I'll just like put my phone over to her, and then she'll be like start laughing on the conference call. But yeah, there you go.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, that's what always liked doing. I was the kid in school who liked making people laugh. Like, I'm gonna do that right now. If I can somehow do that professionally, if I can think of a funny shirt to be designed that someone wants to buy, or like, I want that shirt because it's funny. I think that's awesome. That's why I do what I do.
Cool. All right. And then to get from, let's say you're just graduating to where you're at right now, what pieces of advice would you give? Don't
be afraid to take smart risks. When I was at the Chive, one of my bosses there told me if he's like, your job is social media. And again, there's a lot of content out there. People could be going anywhere. They want to see news stuff. And he's like, if I don't call you into my office, like at least once a month and like show you something you posted and ask, well, what the hell is this? Then you're not doing your job right.
There you go.
And that's a scary thing to do. I mean, again, take calculated risks and be daring in a smart way, Mm-hmm. There are so many ways to mess up in social media. And again, my heart goes out to them, but like I also love it when it happens. Like my favorite of all time, I think, is SpaghettiOs posted this. It's the guy, like the SpaghettiO mascot holding the American flag, and it said like hashtag remember Pearl Harbor. And it was it was on the like Pearl Harbor anniversary. And it was like, why did SpaghettiOs feel like they had to post this? Like, this is very weird. VeggieTales also did one that was like remember 9/11, and just like the VeggieTales like characters. I'm like, okay, that's strange. So I love it when it happens, but you just gotta. Okay, the second thing is if you're typing something, if you have it typed, you're ready to hit send, and part of even 1% of you just goes, I don't know about this, chief. Like, listen to that thing and just like delete it. And if it's under the orders of someone else, take it to that person's boss or them or whatever, and just be like, hey, like, I really don't think this is a good idea. You have to like just trust your gut. And I've not trusted my gut, and it's come like back to bite me in the ass in like major ways on social media. But I mean, you just gotta, if part of you goes, well, maybe if someone will look at it like this, they could interpret it in a different way. That's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, I don't think any of them will. I think it's fine. Like, don't post it. You know what I mean?
I know exactly. There's so many, I feel like there's a couple different posts that I've had, maybe even replying to comments or something like that, where I commented and it was like, one, either I would like go to sleep and then I'd wake back up and be like, man, I shouldn't have said that. And then like, I'll go delete it, or same thing where I was like going to post something, or being in the video editing field, you get all of the footage. So it's like, you have to make decisions, and you are the last curator of how somebody looks on camera and how they're presented in the world. So there's a lot of things that you could do or not do to present them in the best light. And sometimes I don't know if it's a good trait or a bad trait, but I'm very gullible. So
me too. I'm very gullible.
So I would cut things together, and then like, even if I was screening them at the Chive, somebody would look at it and be like, wait, why is that in there?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. Yeah, we should definitely take that out.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely circumstances where that's a good,
I think,
great piece of advice.
Always trust your gut, and you will mess up. No one has a 100% like perfect social media track record. Mm-hmm. So you're going to mess up, and it will feel like the end of the world and that the walls are closing in around you.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I've been lucky that all the companies I've worked for are like, yeah, it happens. It's fine.
Yeah.
And just like learn from it. I haven't messed up, I guess, too bad. I thought I did one time, but I still had my job, so it's fine.
Where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Edward Stockwell. I got lucky when I made my Twitter account because I have a like somewhat unique name, Edward Stockwell. There's not that many, but there was a guy who was Edward Stockwell on Twitter, but he for some reason chose at Stockwell Edward, and I was like, all right, you had Edward Stockwell, you didn't go for it. All right, I'm gonna take it. So I think I'm at Edward Stockwell on pretty much everything.
And then Spicy Boys.
At Spicy Boys on the three major ones, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
And can you spell it one more time for us?
Yes, that is SPCYBOIS.
And look for that hand gesture.
Look for the hand, exactly. I'm pretty I think my Instagram's on private. Twitter, I like to tweet a lot. Twitter's my favorite. I love Twitter so much.
Can you explain because I kind of know, but explain the reasoning behind why you have a meme page that's private?
Sure. So I used to have my meme page private.
Oh, okay.
Because and giant ones are doing it now, but if someone sends you like a meme or whatever and it's private and it's like, I guess I gotta follow them to see it. So it's just a way to build an audience over like proven, I guess, statistics of like if you're trying to grow a page. It depends on the page. I mean, I wouldn't recommend if you're like if you're trying to sell people things, like don't make it private. But if you're just trying to entertain or show off content, try privacy up for a little bit. See how it goes. I mean, yeah, we saw an uptick in followers when we were private. So, but it's open now because at this point, it's pretty popular. So when people are coming in, I want them to just be able to like follow the account, and that also helps because people come in and they scroll through everything and they're like liking a bunch of different stuff, so that kind of like helps the page out and stuff.
There you go. If you are looking for some dank memes, look
memes.
no
I can't
further.
promise. I can't. It's like the what is it, Anchorman, the Sex Panther thing? They're dank like 60% of the time, or 100% of the time. So yeah, can't promise 100%.
All right, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, and I think we brought all the value in terms of memology, and just a little peek behind what goes into a social media type of brand, in terms of what their social strategies are. I think it's like some really cool stuff that we talked about. So if you did enjoy it, and speaking of sharing, you could share out this podcast with a friend. You could tweet it. You could, I don't know. You know what? You could write a handwritten letter with the URL and send it to somebody.
That's a gift we don't get enough of, the handwritten like letters.
But anyhow, thank you so much for coming on the show, Edward.
Thank you, man.
And until next episode, live a life of abundance. I'll see you guys next time.